Last Night a Rave Saved My Life, a podcast by me, Nico Beastwang. It serves as a podcast to get to know the interesting people I meet a little bit better. I run a events promotions company, a record label, a music venue, and a radio station. So I get to meet loads of cool artists and industry heads. I generally only get to speak to these people briefly at an event or over email or text. So it's great to get to know these a little bit better and share these conversations with you. The first guest that we have on the show is called Badger. He is a DJ and music producer from Brighton, an artist that's made waves on social media recently and really worked out how to make the algorithms work for him. He has had an official remix with Venga Boys that went viral this summer, and he's had some huge releases on labels like Nightbase, 140, and he's even had a release with us on One Records. It was a great conversation. It was recorded really last minute. Yeah, let's get into it. Yes, I thought it was good to potentially have a chat because I guess with a lot of artists, you only see them from one point of view, where it's socials, gas, shows and this, that and the other.
Yeah.
I guess with the idea with some of my shows, especially with the person who I am, I really like to get to know someone, you know what I mean? So I guess the whole theme of maybe what we're going to start is about getting to know people and dig a bit deeper into their experiences in the underground music scene. So in terms of getting into underground music, what was your first experience getting into it?
I think my first experience was like jump up drum and bass at house parties on kind of like iPod docks. That was like the very introduction. And then, so I grew up in Brighton. I bought like a fake ID off someone when I was 17. And the first nightclub I went to was the Vox. I like Brighton Beach, which at the time was just, yeah, it's pretty much straight up drum and bass, like very like jump up heavy. And that was, I remember the first time I went in, it was like 6 or 7 months before I turned 18, testing out this like fake ID. And it was like the most exciting and like amazing experience. Felt like a proper bad boy because I was there with the fake ID.
Do you remember who you saw? Or was it headliner just a little?
I can't remember who was on, but I remember just like some of DJ Hazard's like earlier tunes, like It's a Secret and stuff like that. Hearing that come through a sound system and just like losing my mind.
Yeah.
And because like my background musically before that was kind of very like indie and like in bands and like kind of dabbling with rap in a sort of jokey way. And then to go and hear like a sound system and see a DJ kind of opened a whole new world for me, definitely.
Well, yeah, like, in terms of like what you just said, in terms of your early experiences, like what was that like and how has that led you to even be open to jump up drum and bass and things like that?
Yeah, I think like just getting into any kind of music and having an open mind was a gateway to like all of it. But then I think like, yeah, it was quite like a nice natural progression from that. And I think like I'm super glad that I do have that sort of more instrumental, more like quote unquote musical background that some people would argue, I think definitely helps in making my productions a little bit different, because people still definitely say like, people have listened to my tunes and asked me like, oh, are you an instrumentalist? Like I can hear like certain chord progressions and notes you're using and stuff, and you can really hear that you have been like a guitar player or like a singer and kind of like knowledge of like messing around on drum kits and stuff. Then instead of going straight to production, having that and moving on, I think has definitely helped me put a little different twist on it at times.
Did you ever have like for me when growing up, like I used to listen to like a lot of reggae and dancehall, but more from my aunties that were playing it in the house.
Yeah,
like,
nice.
Do you have certain influences from like your parents at all, or like in terms of that influences your own music taste and how that's developed?
Absolutely, yeah. I think I got to shout out my dad big time in terms of my obsession with music, because he was like kind of me waking up first thing in the morning and me last thing at night before going to bed. He was like spinning vinyl records like downstairs.
Yeah, I love that.
And he's into a really huge mixture of stuff. For example, like he was like, I was hearing him play vinyls of like The Bug, which was like Flowdown's first original like duo and stuff
Crazy.
like that. Yeah, yeah. And I thought this is like super angry, really
How
out
old was
there.
you
Like,
then?
how old was I then? This could have been from like sort of 11, 12 years old. There's the One Bug EP. I think it's the one with Skeng on, where whenever that came out, but there's a few other tracks on that. My dad used to either play it in the car when he's driving me to like band practice or to school or something like that, or like I'd wake up in the morning, there's this like really angry like early version of grime on. So I think subconsciously over the years that's had a huge influence on that. But yeah, he listens to a really wide range of stuff as well. So I think that has just done wonders for me in terms of my like subtle appreciation growing for it.
I get that. In terms of like, I mean, I didn't even really introduce you. So like Badger's an artist that we've known for some time, and we've even had a release together on one record.
The Changes edit, yeah, that's it.
And we had a tune before that, Canopy.
Oh yeah, that was on the compilation. Yeah, that's it.
Airwaves. And I guess over the years, I've seen him kind of grow, and very much so in this year, seeing you playing at all the festivals, and obviously you got a whole string of shows coming up. I presume that, and ones that you've already had. In terms of like when you thought, I want to do this full time, or not even full time, I just want to be in the music industry and do it and involved in underground dance music. Do you remember a certain moment or an experience where it was like, I want to do this?
Yeah, there's definitely one that stands out that I can think of, and it kind of just like, it goes to show how lucky I am that I've always kind of been quite dead set on it and known like this is kind of number one option, or like not even number one, like only option of me wanting to pursue like long-term career was music. I think when I was 11, and I was in a band, we were called The Desperate. We were kind of like an indie rock, like 3-piece band.
Okay.
And we entered this like Battle of the Bands competition thing to play at Concord 2 in Brighton, which is still quite like an active, well-known venue. We managed to like get one of the like 6 winning slots or whatever. And then off the back of that, I think it was the day before, we interviewed on Juice FM, which was a Brighton radio station at the time. I think it doesn't run anymore. I think it's gone bankrupt, but they asked the 3 of us all the same question. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was like, do you see yourself doing music forever or down the line or kind of as a career? Our bassist said, probably not, but it's fun right now. Our drummer said, yeah, I don't see why not. And I said like, absolutely, like there's no doubt in my mind. And this was at like 11 years old.
Yeah, that's fun how that's a key memory in you. Like,
absolutely, yeah. My mum talks about that at least once a year. It comes up.
I guess the next question I'm going to ask then is, how has Brighton influenced you in whatever way? What is it about Brighton that's like made you who you are in terms of music?
I think, yeah, it's definitely worth like thinking about, because I think it has had a huge influence on me, and like where I've gone musically. I think whilst it's small, it's like super vibrant. There's a lot going on. The club scene has always been like very strong. It's quite like a sort of liberal, open city. There's been like a lot of opportunities. And
you're from Brighton, that's where. Like...
Brighton's where I grew up. Yeah, I was born in London, but moved quite quickly to Brighton afterwards, and then lived there until I was 19 when I went to Bristol. So I think the build up for that was kind of the range of music that Brighton had, which what kind of was reflected in what I liked. It was either like kind of indie and bands, or it was like TQD or like DJ Hazard and people like that, and the small amount of clubs there was. So yeah, I think there's a massive influence on where I've ended up.
How then has Bristol influenced you? Because that's like, and how do the two differ?
Yeah, I think Bristol, like Brighton kind of nurtured me to get to a kind of initial base point, and then Bristol really helped me kind of like grow. And sort of the last year in Bristol before I just moved back to Brighton a couple of months ago was like integral in my sort of like blow up phase or initial whatever, like proper intro into full time and into the industry. Because yeah, like Brighton kind of, it has little bits of like Bristol and London, but in a much more tame way.
Yeah.
And Bristol's just loose and heavy. Yeah. And it's very like, my mum calls it grungy. It's a very grungy city. So I think going there, like having a little
How long
bit...
was you there for? 3 years?
I was there for 7 years.
7 years?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
okay.
uni was 3 years, and I stayed for 4 years afterwards, just pushing the music, because I had enjoyed the time there and I played gigs and stuff, but I was miles away from doing it full time. So then I got 2 day jobs, one of which I was supporting kids with learning difficulties at a music college, and I was also a skateboarding coach in a youth centre.
Okay.
So
have you always been involved in youth work before that? Or was it, how did you get into it?
I'd done a little bit of volunteering and like Oxfam type stuff, but I think I was just looking around for jobs like in the summer after uni, and I got quite lucky. I think the music college one came up, and it just said like you didn't need teacher training or anything, because it's like college level, like FE. So it wasn't as academic as like a degree level or anything like A levels kind of thing. So all you needed was some kind of degree within the music industry. So I was like, I'm just going to have a pop, put in an application. Nice. Luckily, I interviewed quite well. So yeah, just kind of rocked up, did all right in the interview, and then that was it. So that was the one I did for 4 years. And then the skate coach job I did for like a year. So I was working 2 day jobs, and just like in the year before I left Bristol, And like just before I got to where I'm at now with full-time music, I didn't really like kind of cut out like seeing mates or like going to the pub. I was rarely even like watching a film with like a takeaway on a Friday. I was kind of just work one or sometimes both of my day jobs, go home, 10-minute walk around the block, and then music, be it social media or invoices and calendars when I was doing my own bookings, or actually working on new music until I was too tired to look at the screen, go to bed, repeat. Did that for a year, and then it's been pretty life-changing.
So like in terms of your calendar at the moment, like it must be pretty hectic, right?
Pretty full on, yeah. We've got bookings up until July at the moment.
Nice.
Which is pretty mad. And I think we've just locked in my 2024 Australia-New Zealand tour, amongst a few other pretty crazy international bookings that I can't say too much about yet. But yeah, it's looking good. It's looking good,
I mean, it sounds like the dream is happening. Like,
that's it.
And is that happened like pretty suddenly? Like, what was the moment where like the bookings were coming in fast? Like,
it was around this time a year ago, and it did also coincide with me taking social media really seriously. And kind of, it was around this time a year ago, I felt a bit too old and like it was a little bit cringe, but I was like, sod it, I'm going to jump on TikTok, post as much as I can, sort of 1 to 3 like little 10 to 30 second videos a day, see what happens. And then within sort of like 2 or 3 months of doing that consistently, then it was like a lot of demand for bookings. It wasn't just bookings in Bristol or Brighton. I was getting on trains to Manchester and Nottingham and places like that, which was quite scary, but really exciting as well. And in terms of like, does it feel like it happened quickly? It's kind of yes and no. I think the big spike, yes, felt like it happened quickly, but obviously grafting in the dark with little to no wins for sort of like 7 or 8 years before that. And I always claim onto a quote. I think it was Scream that said it in an interview somewhere. I wouldn't be able to find a source, but I'm pretty sure it was him that said it. He says it takes 10 years to blow up overnight. Yeah. And that was always like, that has really shown. So I'm about 8 years in to grafting it in the dark in the last year has been some big changes.
Did that quote make you feel more patient with it and be like, okay, cool, like, because I guess with a lot of artists, you see a lot of success around you that can be a detriment to your own mindset in some ways. So do you feel like you've been patient with it? It wasn't like, I want this now, like you knew it was coming.
I think you have to force the patience, because I'm not the most patient person. I'm always itching to get music out, and I think the more you get into social media as well, when you do have the odd video that sort of blows up and goes into some mad explore page or algorithm, and then when that kind of peters down and then you go back to what normal was, you feel as if like, oh my God, I flopped, like everyone's given up on me now, like my time's over. Like, so I think there's definitely a lot of resilience and patience and that needs to come in with that as well. But there's no other option, really. I just have to keep going, keep cracking on, like even in times where it feels a bit more quiet, which a lot of the time I might just be in the artist's head more than anything. But the only option is to keep going, really.
Yeah, I feel that. In terms of, I guess, is your schedule like you have multiple shows every week now? So how do you balance, I guess, your DJ, producing and personal life? Like, is there a way of balancing it? Is something I have to give?
I don't have there's definitely no clear answer to that I've worked out so far. It's definitely a struggle and it's very up and down. And I think especially in the last sort of like few months since maybe like summer until now, just getting used to and adapting to the extreme contrast that weekdays to weekends are. Because it's like weekends, I'm in anywhere between sort of like 2 to like 4 or 5 cities. Hundreds of people around me telling me that I think I'm sick and wanting to have a chat, but like I don't really know or trust any of them. It's like an amazing thing, but it's nobody that like if I had a really big problem, I would like meet up with like for a coffee with or anything like that. So it goes from these mental weekends with travel and booze and late nights and chicken shops and stuff like that to then just waking up on my own at home like several days in a row, and it's a really quiet day with there's no office to get to for 9 o'clock or anything like that. So it's like the discipline is definitely a difficult thing to sort of keep yourself in check, and it kind of goes up and down. But I'm trying to like sort of, I think it's doing things outside of music in a routine that help all the other things fall into place. Because I feel like for probably the month before this, I've been feeling like quite lethargic in the week, a little bit lazy, like in the move since moving from Bristol back to Brighton, I'm like have been feeling a little bit aimless and like I'm not making as much music as I should be doing. And then just this week, just to do a few things like get up first thing in the morning, make a coffee. It's a 5-minute walk down to Brighton Beach. So just sit on the beach. First 10 minutes, just do a bit of admin and just drink this coffee. Do that. Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Like little things
I
like
wish
that.
I had a beach around the corner.
Yeah. But that's it. In Bristol, it was even more convenient, not beach wise, but about 40 meters from the house I was living in, there was this like really nice park, like quite quiet park, but quite high up. So a really nice view. This bench with like greenery all around it with a really nice view of the city. So every morning within 2 minutes of the alarm going off, I'll make a coffee, go and sit in this park and then do the kind of morning emails on my phone. Like, and anytime I want to have a break, it's just like, I can be straight in nature.
Yeah, I love that.
So little things like that, which I didn't have in Brighton. So it's like, get down the beach, even if it's 3 or 4 days a week, do that. I do that. I don't know if you know about like Wim Hof breathing.
No.
It's like meditative, like 3-rounded, like breathing technique.
So breathing from your stomach.
It's you essentially do like so Wim Hof is this Dutch guy that is like, so he's there was a voice about him a while ago and he's done like TED Talks and stuff like that. He's branded as like the Iceman and like kind of like he has like superhuman abilities almost. But over the years of his life, he's developed this like breathing technique where you do like, so there's 3 rounds to it and 1 round consists of like 30 like deep, quick breaths. And then after the 30th, you let all of the air out of your body. And then basically because you've put so much more oxygen into your body than usual, you're able to hold your breath for like mad amount of time. So like my personal best on the breath hold is 3 minutes and 7 seconds.
Oh, wow.
That's like the longest I've held my
Crazy.
breath. Usually it's about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, like unless you're pushing yourself.
Does that mean you're a good swimmer then?
I haven't really put it to the test. I'm a bit amazed. I don't know if it'd be harder or similar underwater.
Yeah.
But there's a huge disclaimer on the video that you follow along, like do not do this while driving, in the shower, in a swimming pool, like on a cliff edge, nothing like that, because there's a tiny chance you could pass out. I never have. But yeah, so you do that, let all of the air out of your body. You can hold your breath sort of like between 1 to 3 minutes, and then all the way in again, hold for 15 seconds, let go, and that's 1 round. And so I've started doing that like just into the first lockdown, I think, and I haven't missed more than the odd day for the last like 3 years or whatever that was. I'd say 100% that's like changed my life, because it's just like, it takes sort of like 12 minutes to do, completely takes you out of your headspace, makes you like really present. And it's like a natural high kind of there's no like hangover from it or anything like that. So that's a really nice thing to do, and I recommend it to all my mates. Like, super easy. Just follow the YouTube video, and just little things like that are really good at like that, and like cold showers as well.
Okay.
So little things like that, good for the mental health. They wake you up, sort of like if you're.
I want to know. So it's like, do you do anything else? Cold showers? Do you do the meditating?
Well, the meditating is something I would like to give more time to, and that comes in with the patience thing. Like when it's 10 minutes and it feels really good, or a 2-minute cold shower, I can do both of those because it's done really quickly. But the idea of actually sitting there for like however long, 20 minutes to an hour, I'm too twitchy. I want to go on my phone, or I get a weird idea that I want to write down or something like that. So that's tougher, but maybe that's a New Year's resolution.
Okay. So like away from music, do you have like, how do you spend your personal time to kind of get away from things?
Well, that's one that probably needs a bit of improvement as well, because like,
it's hard, right? If you're so busy all the time, like when do you get time?
Well, that's it. And in a time when I'm not gigging, I'm beating myself up if I'm not just working on music. So I do hobbies wise, like music is kind of everything for me at the moment. And it's been nice in the last couple of months being back in Brighton, catching up on a slightly deeper level with some of my like oldest and the friends that I know the most and kind of trust the most, which has been really nice. That's not a hobby. But that's something that I didn't have in Bristol for the last year because I just completely shut myself off. But really, it's just music. And annoyingly...
Sorry, carry on.
Well, I was going to say as well, like because I was, for the last year in Bristol, I was doing a skateboarding coach job in the youth centre. So I was skating 2 days a week, like for a paycheck. This was in Bristol, like one of the 2-day jobs I was doing. But then since coming back to Brighton, I haven't skated once, which is really annoying. And there's also a skate park like next to the beach by my house, so I need to get back on skating. I think that's a good thing.
I think that's going to be the answer to my question. So what I was going to ask, like to rephrase it, is like, if you could spend more time doing something, what would it be?
So yeah, I think back on the skating, and I think actually,
or is there something that you haven't tried that you're like, oh, I really want to do that?
Haven't tried, maybe like just actually spending more time finding and cooking meals that I think sick, but I've never really cooked myself. Because I think with my cooking, it's just like, obviously on the road, it's just all takeaways and stuff, which like is not good. But then sometimes in the week, I'm so in that mindset of just like hungry, like look for the nearest like chip shop or something, which is not good.
I'm a huge cook. Like I love cooking.
Is it? Yeah, nice. And it's I'm a bit lazy with that, to be honest. It's just like variants of like from scratch pasta sauce with like different pastas, which is fine. But there's definitely more to cooking than just
it's literally just
sauce.
practice-based perfect. The same with everything. Just chuck things in, see what happens.
That's it.
Or follow a few recipes. Like I think I learned just from following. I was just watching my mum. Like, what are you doing now? What's this? What's that? It just comes with time, I think.
That's it. What kind of dishes do you all go to, or what was mumsy's that you're getting at home? Your favourites?
And you know what? Like, it's funny because I'm Indian. Like, my mum would just chuck chili and everything.
Nice.
So it's like we're making like pasta, chili goes into it. So she used to make this amazing chili cheesy pasta, and it was like the memory of like back in the day when I used to eat. But like my speciality, I make like a banging roast dinner. Like my Christmas dinner, I'm roasting is like 10-10.
Nice, yeah. I think it's just such a nice thing to do, and it does take you out of your sort of day-to-day life. It's pretty like therapeutic to cook, and
that's my escapism. So because my mind's always racing, I try to find things where I do switch off, and because you have to be really attentive to whatever you're cooking, it's like it naturally is like it's not even forced. It's like you have to switch off. So
yeah.
I enjoy cooking so much.
And that almost is like a form of meditation in a way, isn't it? Like just an hour you in a kitchen. That's all you think about. It's like makes you super present, doesn't it? Because it's like all the time. It's got 6 minutes on that, and I've got to chop this by that time, and that's like
it's a challenge. Christmas dinner or roast dinner.
Yeah, roast. Like I think what always just makes me a bit depressed about roast. They're so tasty, but it takes like 3 hours to cook, and then you plate it up and it's gone in 10 minutes. It's just like it's mad. But I guess it's not about that. It's about the journey, not the destination.
I think that's what I was making roast dinners for quite a long time, and then I started making curries. And the thing with curries, they taste so amazing. You can make them really quick, rather than like a roast dinner that takes forever. If that can.
Yeah. So you get the reward quicker with the curry.
Yeah,
nice.
In terms of like your shows, I mean, you must have had quite a few, and you played in so many different cities. Do you have like standout shows in your mind where you was like, you know what, that was sick?
Yeah.
Not even like just in the usual spaces that you might find, but even some of the other random little cities or towns or things like that.
Definitely. And I think that's definitely what I think festival season to club season is very different. Festivals are usually like pretty great, and obviously club seasons when you trek into sometimes the smaller places, like you get some that are just amazing. And weirdly, like sometimes the smaller places and the random ones really surprise you. But then with that as well, I think you do sometimes get like not the best turnouts, or like a sound system that like more or less makes your ears bleed, and like little things like that. But a few that really stand out, obviously in terms of summer, obviously like Boomtown and Glasgow and El Dorado coming out with Venga Boys, those are the winning spots of summer for sure. But I think in club season, there's been a few. So I did one a month or two ago in Reading, and it was a Sunday, and I was just so sure that I was like, who's going to be there on a Sunday?
I think I've seen videos of that.
That was
like a 360.
They had the 360 with these like mad red lasers like shooting everywhere. The good cameras all around. Somehow we managed to sell it out on a Sunday. Just went down. I think it was like the 6th show of the week, and I was in my hotel room for several hours before that, just feeling like a bit anxious, and I didn't really want to go. But then I went there, had a couple of beers, jumped on, and it was just amazing. It was like an hour and a half set as well, so I had a bit more time. Like I kind of nearly ran out of tunes on my current like set playlist, which stressed me out for a minute, and then I dived into like, so I was on the 2 decks, I had my newest playlist and then one of my oldest playlists, and I was doing like tune for tune on each playlist, like because that was the only option I had. But then off the back of that, there was some mad like happy accidents and like kind of new blends that I wasn't quite sure on, but went for it anyway. And it just like happened to like think, for example, like Glue by Bicep into Bullet 2's like Badadan edit. Just like little things like that. I was like, oh geez, like I'm gonna try that. This is like obviously towards the end of the set as well. I was like, little things like that. People loved it.
Do you ever, when you ever like find mixes, do you ever remember and then like try to recreate it for the next time?
Yeah, they're definitely like, I think if you do a blend that you hadn't planned and feels a bit risky, but then it does really well, I'll just remember it. And it's like, well, when one of the tunes played, I'm like, oh, like it re-triggers the memory, and I'm like, yeah, I need to find that one and do the blend again. I think some of the best moments of my set have come from like the accidental, like not too rigidly planning a set and give it room. Obviously sometimes like things don't quite work, and you got to just style it out. But then
you have a bigger reaction as well, and everyone kind of sees that, so it's like they vibe off that.
I guess it kind of humanizes the experience as well. It's not just like this super clean set that's just like seamless. Like even that with like going back to like watching skaters and stuff, like so Shane O'Neill, who's this Australian skater, one of the best in the world, but like his landing and precision with everything is like so clean and perfect that sometimes it's a bit boring to watch. But then if you see some really like sketchy dude in New York like bombing down the hill and it's like nearly dies but like just about makes it, that in a way it's like, oh, like he nearly didn't make that but like just about pulled it off. So there's like, that's like the DJ equivalent of that, I guess. Like don't too rigidly plan the sets.
I get that. In terms of collaborations, what is your favorite so far, if you can pick one? And also, who do you want to collaborate with?
Oh, that's a good one. Haven't done like loads of collabing with other producers yet, to be honest. I've had some great ones with other singers. I'm trying to think now, just like some I've done with vocalists that have been great, like my tune Backstrap that I did with Ritz. He's like a Brighton MC who's sick. That was just like, it went really smoothly. Like he got his part done like so quickly, and it just fit like perfectly. And then that just kind of like flew, and that was like one of my original and like more bass heavy ones that like did really well at a time when I was worried about like I wasn't pushing that style too much. And so I kind of took the risk with that one, came together really well, and that smashed it. Producers, like there's a few I've got in the works, like me and PJ Bridger have one that started, me and Samurai Breaks have one that's kind of started. I'm trying to think who else. Like there's a few that are kind of, I think producers are just quite long as well. Like they go through phases where like one person's like really hot on it and gets a certain bit done, and then the other one's like long for ages, and then like seems like somebody else like picks up their weight and someone else is like on tour and you got to wait like a month. I'm trying to think in terms of dream collabs. I think Sammy Virgie would definitely be a dream collab. That would be sick, and I think our styles are close enough so that it could definitely work.
I can see something interesting happening off the back of that.
Yeah, that'd be sick. And he's like definitely one of my biggest like inspirations, influences. Like he's just sick, like really cool, varied, like super fun, occasionally silly, but it's also got like the bass heavy like bits that come through as well, really varied. I think also we've discussed it, but it hasn't been started. Like I would love to maybe have a pop at something with Zero. I think that could be really cool.
He's from Brighton as well, right?
He lives in London now, but I'm pretty sure he grew up in Brighton as well. So that'd be really sick. Me and Bush Baby have said that we should, but hasn't been started yet. So yeah, clearly I need to chase some of these up, I think. I need to stick that on the to-do list and get it done. Yeah, definitely.
In terms of what your schedule is looking like over the next 12 months, not even from a show perspective but also music, like what have you got coming up?
So shows wise, we've got bookings until July at the moment, which is a lot. And just crazy compared to this time last year. I had probably like this time last year, I probably had shows up until like New Year's Eve. So it's like I had booking for a month in advance. Now it's like however far away July is, like 8, 9, 10 months or something. And I think so that's pretty like set, and I just need to like make sure the set is like changing and still stays like as good of a standard as it has through summer. But then I think something that definitely needs the most attention is like original releases. And sort of like, I feel like my Spotify is the most quiet area of my career at the moment. So I've been in some label sessions in London. We've been hit up by quite a few big labels, and they're like kind of currently listening to demos. So I think that's the thing that in the next 12 months, it needs like the biggest sort of push. Get some things on Spotify, push original music. Because I think that's, in terms of longevity of career, it is sick playing the shows and making edits that make people scream, but the originals that kind of trying to get into playlists and stuff that people are like listening to all the time, that kind of thing, and it's you that's made it entirely from a sort of even legal point. That's the biggest thing to sort of focus on moving forwards.
I get that. I guess like one of the questions that I want to ask off the back of that is, you're saying that your Spotify isn't where you want it to be, yet your shows are coming in thick and fast. So like I think in terms of like the landscape of figuring out how to make it is changing. And I see that from DJ Jackum, like his socials are popping as well. He's got a whole run of shows, and I guess the two things that there is some similarity with maybe you and him is that you've been on job with your socials. I guess the question is, do you think, well, probably the answer is no, but what is is there a right route to take in terms of like for new producers trying to get into the scene? Because I guess right now it's not just the case of putting out tunes. I guess the social element plays a massive key part of it. And I guess it's hard to, even when we're speaking to, let's say, for example, when people send us demos for the record label, like sometimes we put a lot of money into like the artwork, for example, and the whole marketing plan. But a lot of it needs to come from also the artist to push it. But how do you get people to really take on board that socials are important?
Yeah.
And I guess like
so important. There's no right or wrong route to do it for sure. Because everybody is different, be it a tiny bit or massively. So there's no like, this is the right way, this is the wrong way. Just staying consistency is really important. I guess kind of working out like who you want to be seen as a musician.
Yeah.
What sort of like area, like do you want to be kind of the more like slightly cooler, more like headsy side, or are you happy being a bit more silly, or do you want to be like just straight up filth, or like the more kind of niche things? So I think like taking time to get to know yourself and your music and where it might fit. And then, yeah, like you say, like social media is arguably the most important thing you can do right now, which is on one hand kind of annoying. And you see people, maybe especially kind of older, more established artists, not liking that at all. Because like in, say, from 20, 30 years ago, where they've grafted really hard and like to promote an event, they had to go like and only put posters up in town and you'd hope someone see it and things like that. So then you see someone who just thinks of like a sick drum and bass double drop and then it like blows up on TikTok and then they're like one below them on the billing and stuff like that. But in a way it's really refreshing because like nepotism and like people being born into context like that is kind of like less important kind of, or like than it used to be. Like I think if you've got good ideas and you make good music and you've got a phone, then like everybody is at this really cool sort of like square one together. So it feels like it's more accessible than it ever has been to like break through in music. It's more saturated than it's ever been, but like literally anyone can have a pop.
Yeah.
So if you have a pop and you work out exactly who you're trying to hit in terms of audience, and then you just keep going, it's more of a question of like when it will happen rather than if it will happen.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think one of the kind of advice that I give, I don't know whether you'd agree, is that with social media, the negative is that, let's say, for example, a lot of musicians, they can be introverts, and that can be a difficult thing because they use music to be a form of escapism. But when they do actually want to put something out, it's like breaking that barrier of putting yourself out then. And I guess it's a lot of musicians. But I guess all from the positive side of things, what I have seen is where a lot of things have been gatekept, but then now artists can build a whole community by themselves and control their whole audience.
That's it.
Which I think is sick.
Yeah, it's not just up to the labels anymore. It's like anyone can smash it.
And I've seen it with like Jyoti, where she's actually smashed it, and she's been about for time, but when she's really took on board the social media, smashed it with Reels and TikTok, like she's built up this massive audience that's all about the things that she likes and what she cares about. And the same thing will be for other artists like yourself and so many people blowing up now, that it kind of shows the value of having a direct contact to your audience, if that kind of makes sense.
Definitely, yeah. And it's I do get that it's really daunting, like you say, especially for a lot of somewhat like introverted musicians often. But I think it's almost the kind of like fake it till you make it type thing. And almost like for me with my posting, like I just almost detach it from like who I really am. And it's just like this little box that I like in my head as well, like posting, especially a lot of mine, I've done like the silly dancing videos and stuff like that. In my head, it's just like an extension of performance. And it's not kind of really me. So it doesn't really matter like if a post completely flops, or like, I think also a huge thing is like the getting started is difficult, and the initial phase where you're like grafting it and you believe in yourself, but there's no evidence to show that it works yet, like through numbers and stuff like that. And I think the biggest worry is people like either like an ex or like a few people they went to school with, like getting their phone out like, oh, look at that, like, oh, this guy's a neat, like, oh, this is the most cringe thing ever. Because there's going to be that period where you're smashing it and nothing quite happens, and then eventually it will happen. Yeah. But I think that's the hardest thing to get started and get through that initial period of people like, oh yeah, you're posting on TikTok loads these days, aren't you? Like, fairs, man. Like, it's like, you have to just push through that.
Yeah. So I guess like when you do get there, you're going to think, no, we're bothered about all the people that are here.
That's it. It doesn't matter at all.
What you think they're saying.
Yeah. That's it. And you can talk to yourself. I think people are gonna gossip regardless, whether you're working at Tesco's or you're touring the world. So so just have a pop, like work out exactly what you love and just have a pop at it, and try not to worry too much about like the bullies from school saying you look nerdy on TikTok. Like, doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
So like we have one question left. We are in a bit of a rush because we're in a studio and we are just about to play a show. It's about just before 10 p.m. Badger's playing with us. Next door to this room is the actual club. So I guess my last question to you is, if you could give advice, you probably already said it already, but if you could give advice to someone just stepping into the underground music scene, what would your advice be in terms of your first initial steps?
Initial steps, I would just say like hit the ground running, get involved, carry yourself to be the best version of yourself, especially online for sure, and just whenever you're like going to places where you're meeting people, either people you want to work with or people that could offer you opportunities. Just be a sound version of yourself, because the music industry is small. If you're a bit of a dick, word travels quickly for sure. Believe in yourself even when the results aren't there, or even if you're going through a phase where it feels like the posts are flopping or the shows have gone a bit quiet. Push through. Who's it? There's like some podcast, I think it's like Tom Hanks with like De Niro and Al Pacino and people like that, and he's like, this too shall pass. Whether you're like, you think you're smashing it in life, you think everybody finally gets you, this too shall pass. You think you've hit rock bottom, you think you're never going to get better, this too shall pass. So just like keep going in whatever your phase you're at, and also just stay humble, because wherever you're at is not going to last forever. Whether you're right on top, don't get complacent, don't become arrogant, because a week later you could be down at the bottom and like desperately looking for guidance from the people that you were like rude to 2 weeks before in the club. Do you know what I mean? Things like that. So just stay consistent, be as sound as you can, treat people with love and respect, because everybody deserves it and you want it yourself. Make bangers and just get them on social media. Put as much time as you can into producing. If you're working a day job, don't become a complete hermit for a year like I did, but be willing to make little sacrifices. Say your mates are going for a big session at the pub on a Wednesday, maybe don't, and like post a TikTok, or like spend that last hour on that snare or something and go out with them on a Saturday. Little things like that, and just keep at it. And if you keep at it and you're sound and you believe you've got good ideas, it will definitely happen. It's not a question of if, it's like when. It will happen for sure. Yeah.
Love that advice.
That's it.
Well, thank you for coming down.
No worries,
this was a last minute decision to record this podcast.
That was good. Thank you for having me.
So yeah, I guess you'll be able to find this somewhere on the Beastwang socials, BEASTWANG. This is Badger. What's your socials?
Badger_music_maker. Badger Music Maker. That's it.
But yeah, thank you.
No worries. Thank you for having me, sir. Nice one, dog. Good.